I can't answer my phone. I'm on live. What's up? Okay.
No, 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 none. No. Oh, no. Good. Legal stand for here. What's that? That's another stand. Oh, yeah. When you get there, then Amazon button. I either got this from Computer House on Jefferson Street. It was on the side of the Computer House of all the girls. Yeah. Simple and sturdy and easy to come to this contact. Right. Like, I just want something I can throw in my bag. Like, how you doing, Cole? Man, good. How you doing? Yeah, but it's just a slide into my messenger bag and I. Okay. So you still need. Yeah, it's bigger. Yeah. I got a couple that are bigger, but they got like their attachments. Like this thing is kind of small. Last time. Yeah. Everybody wants to.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
In regards to the new chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church, we are so very glad to join us for tonight. Let me ask you, for those who are still standing, if you would please, there are seats over here and seats over here, just to keep us in report, keeping our doors from being blocked, also seats upstairs. We want to welcome you to this North Nashville Town Hall. State Representative Harold Jr., pastor of the chapel in the church. I just want to allow us to remember that we're here to get information and we can ask difficult questions. We can be curious and be careful. Amen. Without accusations. Amen. Amen. All right. Consider our tone and our posture and strong emotion of welcome. But our task is to begin to get information, and then we will be better as a community. Amen? For questions this evening, question cards are available throughout the program. If you don't have one, raise your hand, and the card will be brought to you. If we can get some more people to pass out the cards, so we can get those to all of those past questions. And then we please pass them to the end of our collection. For those joining us online, you can drop your questions in the chat. And our questions also in the balcony. I want to thank our partners in this, Senator Troy and Oliver, Councilman Brandon Taylor, and the NAACP National Branch. I will now ask that Councilman Taylor to come up and bring us the brief.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you all for being here. Representative Love, thank you for hosting for us this evening. Brother Hughes, thank you so much for leading this charge for discussion in the district and for the NAACP. Thank you all for what you do in the city. Be very briefly, brightly calm. That's what I've been learning on the phone. That's all about. But just we appreciate the engagement that everyone has here today. Welcome questions, discussion. It's from a procedural standpoint, currently right now, there's nothing for the city council of this matter. I don't necessarily foresee anything coming for quite some time. There will be legislation that comes. And so this is a chance to be transparent and open early in the stage to have discussion and to listen. This is a great opportunity for us. See, Councilman Gamble's here. Councilman Gamble. I'm not sure if I see any other council members, but if you are here, thank you so much. Representative Dixie, Brother Torrey, sorry. We've got some folks here to thank you all. It's a chance for us to listen. For myself to go back to my colleagues, specifically on the Fisk issue, there's another issue at hand with our data centers. But for us to go back to my colleagues and have open discussion about what we learned today and hope the coming weeks and months in this discussion with you all to be able to make the most sound decision that we can moving forward. So Thank you. That's the for 10 years.
Good evening, family. It's wonderful to stand before you here today. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about this very pressing, important issue. My name is Timothy Hughes. I am the president of the Nashville branch of the NACP, and it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to this North Nashville Community Town Hall. Today, we will be having a conversation not just about data centers, but about the future of our community. So it is great to have the opportunity to be here to talk about this very important issue and to give our community members an opportunity to have voices heard. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce Dr. Jeannia Clark, who's president of Fisk University, to speak specifically to the Fisk Master Plan. I'm just going to have a couple of moments to kind of set the tone for our conversation tonight and talk a little bit about what we're going to accomplish. And also, not being a good president, I didn't ask you to consider joining us at the branch as we continue this very important conversation of what we'll be doing in the national community. For those of you who may not be familiar, the National Branch of the NAACP is over 100 years old and has been serving as the oldest civil rights organization in the country. Our goal and our effort is to make sure that all communities who are civically engaged have an opportunity to have their voices heard in matters of record and importance in our city. And so if you would, if you are able, please join us at the National Branch of the NAACP as we have these conversations on a regular basis. NAACPNashville.org has information about tonight's conversation, but also about many other issues. With that, I'll go ahead and pass on to Dr. Jeannia Clark to give her an opportunity to welcome you to the space and also to answer some of the questions that I'm sure we will have with regard to the Fisk Master Plan. Dr. Clark. Thank you, brother. Senator Arnold, my apologies, I didn't see where you're coming. Senator Charlene Oliver, Senator who represents District 19, and will be speaking to you in just a moment about her role in the state legislature and the thanks that are for being here on this evening, Senator Oliver.
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I'm gonna apologize for my tardiness. All right, thank you, Mama, for just being here today. It really shows that you care. Some of my colleagues that are here for being here. And just thank you for taking the time to show that this is an important issue to not just our district, but to Nashville. I do want to just begin by addressing some rumors of misinformation. Because it has come to my attention that my stance on the Fisk proposed data center is being misrepresented, particularly by a certain colleague. And so I am aware of that misinformation being spread. And I'm telling you to go that whatever we have heard or was told is completely false. Because I am the only person who speaks for me. And I certainly don't appreciate my reputation being dragged so that a certain someone can boost their celebrity status and appear like the hero in a situation no one has ever been in. And so while my colleague was hosting press conferences and throwing volatile cocktails on this situation, because this issue runs deep. This is a community that has been hurting for decades. Being dumped on by landfills, money being taken out of their community, a whole interstate right through, right here. It's full of our community. So I hear you when I say the hurt runs deep. So we don't have time to play with this thing and get the community wrapped up. And so while folks were doing that, I was actually doing work. I was picking up the phone because I have real relationships with Fisk and the people who work there, and trying to bring resolution. I called up the clerk directly about 2 weeks ago, and I said, look, the community is riled up. You gotta talk to them. And I asked her to commit to 2 things. One, to do a meeting with the Davidson County delegation of legislators to bring the community to, let us ask questions ourselves on behalf of our constituents. She agreed to that, and she did that meeting. There was no secret meeting in private. The same colleague who said there was a secret meeting got the same invitation every other delegation member got and chose not to attend. Secondly, she committed to engaging the community directly. It's here tonight, thanks to the members of here who have asked her. And so I want to thank Dr. Clark for your time to be here. So I want to just address that because when the call happened, that member was nowhere to be found. I don't know if they're here tonight, but still nowhere to be found. Just like my colleague was nowhere to be found when Tennessee State University was under attack by the Republican legislature, and Rep. Harold was fighting to save the board and make sure that TSU got its historic funding that is owed. Just like my colleague was nowhere to be found when the community needed answers, when an ordinance was coming that would affect businesses along Kennedy Street. But you know who did show up? Councilman Taylor showed up to come to listen. So the only place we can only seem to find this comment spreading this information is in front of the camera. And so my colleague really isn't interested in doing the work or finding solutions to your problems. Only interested in sowing chaos in a district he does not represent. To fit his own agenda, narrative, and vendetta. So if anyone wants to question whether I care about environmental issues, I just say, look at my track record. Not what I say, but what I do. It happened. In 2017, I stopped the development from going on top of Fort Nick. When a developer wanted to put a mixed-use development on top of it where Black enslaved people were found to be buried. And I said, no, it's not that development. When COVID-19 hit, the pandemic, and we were dying at 3 times the rate of COVID in our white civilians, I made sure that $22 million got put into the hands of Black communities for rent relief, for food insecurity, and for small businesses. My colleague Odessa can attest to that. When Elon Musk announced that they would put in an underground Tesla tunnel right in my district.
Yeah.
The only elected officials that were ready to take on this fight against a billionaire with myself and Councilwoman Alicia Porterfield. And so my track record stands for itself to bring answers to the community. So I came here tonight just like you. I want answers too. I am trying to learn this in real time, just like you. I would be humble enough to admit that I am not the subject matter expert on data centers. But I'm willing to learn and do research. And so I'm researching this in real time. Just this weekend, I went to Chicago and met with some fellow legislators from Mississippi who's dealing with the same data center issue. But we came together and we figured out a solution that I'm going to introduce as legislation this coming session. And so up until now, I have strongly believed, as it stands, that this issue of data centers at Fisk and at Nashville Zoo is a local matter issue, a local government matter that I respectfully should not weigh in on, because there is no state legislation for me to vote on or take a position on. So with that said, here's a few things I can commit to. I can commit to listening and being responsive to the North Nashville community. I believe my role is to first and foremost listen and follow the lead of the community. If the constituents of 37208 say they don't want it, then I have to move forward. I can commit to doing my part to be a conduit for truth and transparency as I have done so. so that your concerns are heard and answered. I have shared what I know, but it's not enough for me to make an informed decision, which is why tonight's town hall is being had. And lastly, I can commit to being a good partner to Fisk and work alongside them to usher in real solutions that meet the challenges. That includes legislation and advocating at the state level. So as it stands, there are too many unknowns and variables for me surrounding this data center. I don't know what I don't know, and I cannot put on my conscience to risk the health and well-being of people who will have to live with the consequences decades from now. So therefore, if you ask me today whether I support this proposal, the answer is no. I cannot support the data centers and all that comes with them that could potentially perpetuate harm and jeopardize the health and well-being and quality of life of Nashville residents. So thank you for your time. I hope you're open to the in this topic.
Thank you for those comments. Without further ado, I will introduce to you Dr. J.K. Clark of Fisk University.
The first thing I want to say is thank you all for being here tonight. To me, this shows that you care just as much about Fisk, its place and part in this community, as we at Fisk do. When this conversation for us started more than 2 years ago, this community was center and central to all of that. I'd like to thank Senator Oliver, Councilwoman Taylor, Mr. Hughes, and all of those who have taken the time to call in class. Because you only learn, as we have for the past 2 years, by asking and learning, ask some more, learn some more. And our curiosity around this idea of generating something that could be beneficial to this community as well as Fisk. A lot of questions have been answered that have brought us here, and there are many that have not been answered. The reason you're here is because Fisk has been transparent. You are here because we announced about 6 weeks ago a campus university master plan that also includes an innovation center. Fisk University looked at a university strategy and master plan in 2008. When I arrived a little less than 3 years ago, I was looking for some guidance on the best ways to approach the multitude of needs that exist in this 160-year-old campus, and found that a master plan was considered in 2008, but nothing was executed. So I brought the plan forward and started a series of conversations with faculty, staff, students, and alumni, so we can get grounded in a strategic approach to how do we make sure that Fisk, that's been here 160 years, we hope to be here for 25 more. 50 more, 160 more. So this has always been a part of a proposed strategy that we went public with about 6 weeks ago. This wasn't a finished deal. This isn't something that's been finalized. We were being transparent and saying, this is what we're envisioning for our future. And this is the role that it can play in that. It's about that simple. We have not committed to anything except this. Fisk University, current strategy that we're looking at around our campus master plan is to grow the university from 1,000 undergraduate students to 1,500 as our goal. With that growth strategy, we need to have housing solutions. 80% of our students live on the campus of Fisk University during the entirety that they're there to matriculate their education. 3 of our residence halls are not at capacity. One of the priorities in our plan is a modernization and update to these 3 residence halls, because we cannot grow unless we have a place to house the student that chooses to come to Fisk. We are fortunate that right now with the facilities we do have, that they do come. The residence halls are just one example. The student center is another. It's a part of the university's master plan. That's why I'm excited to see you all here in the room tonight, because you're saying you care about this. Spend some time, look at what we have to work with and our ability to do the mission of the institution. The other part of this I find equally as fascinating. I arrived at Fisk in October of 2023. In January, the following year, a new administration comes into the White House. And there's been an unusual attack that's going on in the higher education space, unlike any institution of higher education has ever seen and or experienced before. That's also impacting the necessity that this school must have a strategy in order to stay here, be here, not just survive here, but to thrive here. We've got to do it. We've got to do something. So we took this 2008 concept, started talking, and came up with a plan that is a part of what we're looking at today. And the part that only seems to get everyone's attention is the Innovation Center. And I'm going to spend more time talking about that. But let me tell you the other parts that need just as much of it. We need a student center at Fisk University. If you don't know what I'm talking about, come to campus and visit the one that we have. We have 3 residence halls that have not been updated and or modernized. I need those beds in order to grow the institution's enrollment for undergraduate students. My first day at Fisk, in my office, I used a hotspot. And let me hear the snicker, because it means you know what it is, and you're saying to yourself, why is she using a hotspot? Here we are, what I will say is one of the best institutions in this country. That's been right here at 37208 since 1866. Our legacy of educating some of the best and the brightest can't be challenged. But the digitally aged born student that we're trying to recruit now, they need a hotspot too. It just creates some unique challenges. So I walked into a situation that when you combine all of these elements, the external factors, the internal issues, I needed some guidance and direction and a plan to build upon. And that's what we've been doing. Along the way, we encountered something known as Project, we called it 2 years ago. We labeled it Project Unicorn, because it was a concept that we understood to be used for some undeveloped land in the southernmost zone of Fisk University's footprint. The university's campus master plan isn't to go out and buy all the land that's available and not available that surrounds it. It's not any of that. We're just trying to maximize and optimize the footprint of where we are today, because we need to do that, and that opportunity already exists there. So I brought along a couple of charts that I'm going to go through to kind of help guide you through where we are and where we've been, and also give you some insight into this idea that we call Project Unicorn over 2 years ago, became a part of the university's campus master plan, and it is a part of the Quantum Leap strategy to include an innovation center at Fisk University. And of course, the whole conversation around why Fisk and why now, we need to move our mission forward. The day is long gone since the Fisk Jubilee singers can get on a steamliner and go across the ocean and bring back the resources that we need to sustain our institution. That day is long gone. So we need to come up with a new model, because the revenue model to the institution today is heavily dependent on students, enrollment, and the federal dollars that was following them. And in some cases, we hope will continue to follow them. I started with this chart because I came into the office the other day. And first, let me back up before I talk about this a little more. I love, no data centers. And then it dawned on me, does everyone really know what a data center is? You have to. Every time you take out your phone, every time you Google, every time you decide you want to post all of your opinions on your Instagram account, every time you listen to the music you want to hear, every time you tap, that is here, it has been here, it isn't going anywhere. The question is the proliferation of centers. All of them aren't AI. Some of them are just sourcing tools of GPUs. There are all kinds of data centers. But what I realized is in many of the conversations I'm having, everybody thinks all data centers are alike. No two HBCUs are alike. No two data centers are alike. So I think it's important that we, as we have done at Fisk, really focus on the difference of data centers and what we were looking at in our concept for the Innovation Center. All data centers are not alike. The questions you need to be asking is what kind of data center? What kind of energy is fueling that data center? That is the absolute most important question to ask. When we think about the horrific stuff all read about these data centers, we've read about the ones that have not been applied to. And I'll never forget when we were in the process of evaluating what we're doing at Fisk, we had a test case right down the street here in Memphis, Tennessee. And we followed that closely to figure out what were the triggers that caused that to happen. And why did it happen? How did it happen? Again, I'm going to go back to make sure we are not doing that. It put us in a position to be transparent about our vision and our plans for the future. But the data centers are not all the same. They all do different things. At Fisk University, we do not and have not entered into negotiations, conversations, entertaining anyone of any of these entities about being a partner with us at Fisk. I kind of feel Senator Oliver's pain, and everybody's out here spewing what we have done. None of them have called me and asked, because it's not what we're doing. We care too much about the students that live on that campus every day. We have staff and faculty that work there every day. And we're surrounded by a community every day. We have no intentions of doing any of that. But I really wanted to just say that I walked in the office the other day. Every time I would talk to someone about a data center, they have one idea of what it is. And I realized people really know the word data center, but that doesn't mean anything other than an adjective to describe a room full of GPUs, a building full of GPUs, a space full of GPUs, which are the big computers, just churning information and energy. And what they're churning it for can vary. It could be to make sure when you click and order your DoorDash, and it tells you it will be there in 32 minutes. That could be running through a data center. It means when you don't like what you hear on the publicly available radio station, and you like to put together your own music mix, is coming through a data center. We are already doing it every day and using it. Is here. So let's be mindful of what they do. The one at Fisk, we have not decided what it's going to do because we haven't entered into any partnership conversations with anyone. Had a wonderful meeting on the campus this morning with about 20 leaders who wanted to hear more. And as we said to them, as we move down this path, we're calling you back so you can hear where we go in the next iteration of this. But when I tell you I'm not talking to a partner, I do not have a partner. I have a reason to make that up because I don't. And let me tell you why we don't have a partner. We have to first decide what we have available. I can't talk to someone who says, I want to come in and do a 25,000 square foot facility, this, that, and the other. We need to know what we have available. And that's why we're being transparent about our university campus master plan. We want to have available an innovation center. We want to have available a new student center. Oh, and guess what? We really would like to do an annex to the Carl Benton Gallery. Fisk University has more than 4,000 pieces in its collection. But we don't have any place that we can share all of that with this community. We are so lucky to have that. When I first got to Fisk, the first two places I saw some of the coveted pieces in our collection were at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City and at the Phillips location, the Phillips collection in Washington, D.C. How come we can't do that here at home? And at the same time, train our students in art restoration, art curation, and they're working with some of the best that we have available. We need an annex to the Carl Benton. We need a place to host commencement in a controlled weather environment. We can't do that at Fisk. So the little micro arena that was announced, Fisk University is doing a sports facility. I was amused to hear that because sports never even entered my mind. They will be able to do sports in there. But can you imagine that we can host our own commencement? We can't do that at Fisk right now. And right now, there are more than 8,000 graduates circling the planet that are graduates of Fisk University and come to commencement, and you'll find most of them right back home. We don't have a place to host that. And we would like to do that. That's a part of the master plan too, by the way. So like this, and right now, there's several tiers that go into data center rankings and what's happening based on all of this technical energy and information about data centers. And let me just tell you, by the time I leave this podium, the technology fueling data centers will have changed again. I'm just being honest with you. There was a fabulous release last week where battery-fueled data centers may end up being the next wave. Battery-fueled data centers. It is really a challenge staying on top of this quickly moving technology. But anyway, this is all about the reliability and uptime necessary in functioning data centers. And that can get really technical, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time there, but I just want to show you how quickly this is moving, how quickly this is evolving, and how quickly we're able to take in this energy and decide what approach we would like to take at Fisk University. Right now, there are universities all over the all over the country that are offering computing and academia and co-location. This is some. NCAA, I understand, is getting ready to do theirs. There's a whole, let's see, who was it? Johns Hopkins announced theirs last week. I think it was the university. They're happening every day. And the reason that they're happening every day is institutions are able to have a tool that their faculty and their staff and their students can have access to doing research and being a part of this whole shift and what's going on in higher ed. But those are just some examples. But you can find hundreds of others. There's plenty of them. You know, it's really fascinating when we talk about data centers and the tiers that they operate in here in Middle Tennessee. I'm not going to spend too much more time on that, but they're already operating here in Nashville at several levels. I will tell you that it was the advent of the zoo project that seemed to have triggered an interest in what Fisk was doing. And Fisk had announced what they were doing transparently to everyone 6 weeks ahead of all of a sudden. But this is what is already happening here in our communities. And that's why I truly applaud the mayor, the Metro Council, and the Tennessee delegates that represent us on the state level for taking a pause and saying, you know what, it's already happening. Should we have a voice in how it continues to happen? I applaud them. Because guess what? They, just like this, care about what is happening within their communities that they represent right here, every day, being your voice to make sure nothing is happening to you. Fisk agrees with this strategy and approach. I appreciate that they have called and asked us what we're doing. We have shared what we're doing. But because it's already here and happening, everybody knows everything that seems to be coming to Nashville these days. I think it's outstanding that they have decided to take a stand and approach asking, understanding, what do we do to make sure all of us are safe in this environment? Those are just some of the ones that are already here. And what we're working on right now at Fisk are just the guidelines for how state data centers are already operating. There are numerous models to these data centers. I mean, countless models to these data centers. The beauty in all of this is that Fisk University is private. This is land we own. So we're able to set and establish guidelines and parameters. So where we are today, everyone seems to be really fixated on 30 megawatts. That's just the result of where our land is and the accessible power to source into a data center. That's all it is, because we will have no interest in bringing in methane gas fuel turbine engines. Period. Those are the models that are creating the greatest level of environmental harm and danger. Look at those data centers, count up the number of turbine engines they're running, and what is the fuel that they're running. That's where the emissions are coming from. We happen to be sitting close to a source of energy. And that's what made this in our minds when we're still doing our research and our homework. It's like, oh my gosh, This is Project Unicorn. But we kept looking, kept asking, kept looking, and kept asking, because we need to establish the guidelines behind what it is that we're doing, how we're doing it, making sure that there's no water impact, no environmental impact. And also, more importantly, when we're ready to open up the conversation, we're talking to partners that value Fisk more than we do, that values this community more than we do. This is not going to be a come in here and do as you wish. This is going to be a very constructive conversation and dialogue. With the group that met with me this morning, they actually had some examples of businesses and organizations they don't want us to even consider as partners. I said, get us the list. Get us the list, because we don't have a partner. What better time than now? That's why we're talking to you now. That's why we're here now. We do not have a partner, but if you have a list that we need to know about, please make sure we see that as well. So the other part that's driving all of this is that Fisk University has looked at its campus master plan as an opportunity for transformative longevity for the institution. I'm sure all of you have been investors in Fisk. I'm sure you're here because you have made your contributions to this institution because you believe it should be here and it should stay here. That's why you're here, because you believe in Fisk, you've invested in Fisk, you made your contributions to Fisk, and guess what? You're saying, we don't want to tell you how to operate Fisk. Keep the gifts coming. Gotta keep the conversation open. Fisk University is woefully under-resourced. One of the questions I got was, have you been fundraising? Seriously? Can I tell you the number of doors that have been slammed in my face? Can I tell you the number of no's that I get? But I keep going right back out there because I know somebody's going to say yes. You're here because all of you have already said yes, I'm sure. You've already invested in making a difference. But we now have a responsibility to look at how do we maintain the sustainability of the institution. We remain woefully under-resourced, and what we're trying to do is look at 40 plus acres of land and maximize and optimize our footprint to meet the need of our students, as well as look at how we can generate unrestricted income and move away from a total majority funding model that's federal government. The benefits will be for the students, the faculty, the staff, and the community. This is not just about Fisk University. If it were only about Fisk University, we would not be here tonight. This is all about us. This is all about Fisk University, another 160 years. When you talk to us at Fisk, that is what we are committed to. And clearly you're here, you must be committed to the same thing. So that's what we're focusing on right now. And that means we need to really continue to provide what our students are asking for. Just as another data point, about 30% of the students that graduate from Fisk are majoring in computer science. I forgot the total percentage of those that are getting degrees in data analytics. These students come to us to get a solid, strong liberal arts education, but 50% of them are focused in the areas of STEM. We have got to remain a player in that space and continue to attract those students to our institution. It provides a really great opportunity for research grants for our faculty. I would tell you, there isn't a university in this country that you're gonna find a more dedicated faculty than at Fisk University. They do a lot with a little. They do a lot with a little. And I know the Fisk guys in this room can attest to that. We now need to give them something to do even more with just a little more. And then, of course, to share these advancements with 37208, from day one, we were talking about, we called it Project Unicorn. How do we incorporate in the academic center, sharing information with our community, doing training, doing development, having workforce conversations. Those were all a part of our conversation because that's why we don't know who our partner is. We are establishing what our parameters will be for this facility. We are determining those parameters. Your questions tonight will help us to continue to find what they are. So how we plan on keeping our promise to this mission is very basic. We are already in the process of looking at the things that keep coming up: energy, noise, and water. The most important one of these is energy because it usually fuels the fire to all of the other issues. We're having conversations about a dedicated power source that we can tap into. We're having conversations about the latest technology of cooling systems to cool all of those GPUs that are running 24/7. Those two things combined will mitigate the other problems: air pollution and noise pollution. There's a technological model around all of this. The responsible governance that we're engaged in around our ownership, financial and operational support, that we don't have as many answers on because we don't have a partner, but what we do know is we're not selling our land. We're not selling the land. Nothing is for sale like this. This is all about maximizing and optimizing what we have. If you are investors in this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've already said you're putting and making your investment in us. That's why you're here. We're not selling anything. I don't want you to invest in us and we turn around and sell. We're not selling anything in this. So we're going to take advantage of our existing footprint. We're going to keep it all right here within the zip code because this is where all of Fisk is located. And our community first impact model has been a part of the conversation from day one. What do we need to do to make sure my students are safe? When you look at this innovation center, it's co-located with the academic center. They're not one is here and the other's across the campus. They're the same building. They're the same building. So we have to make sure that the students who are in there all day, the faculty that's in there all day, the staff that's in there all day, and when you, our community, come in there, yeah, we have to make sure it is a safe environment for us all. Because remember, some of us in this room, we're over there every day. We're there every day. The important thing I want to share with you all is from day one, all of this information is put up on our website. Please go to it and read. And if you still have questions, you just have to send them to quantumleap@fisk.edu. We want to get feedback. If you have another list, please let us know what it is. So I did get some questions earlier today. I'm going to go ahead and answer them. Someone wants to know the disclosure of our corporate partners. We don't have any. Alternative funding strategies. Wow, it's called fundraising. Been doing that for over 2 years. Do you all know how much money Fisk University has in its endowment?
Tell us.
Right around $25 million. So we got a long way to go. And that's just one of the, that's just one of the, that's just one of the things you need to know about us. We have a lot of growth to do at Fisk University. Whether or not we're going to be compliant with the buffer zones and what Metro Council is looking at, we're waiting for Metro Council to tell us exactly what those are, and we will adhere and comply. What about your impact on the remaining parts of this community? Whether or not you plan on raising our property values and displacing long-time residents. We're not using that model. Again, I'm not buying up anything. We're staying within our footprint. We're not going anywhere. We're staying right there where we are. And I just told you how much is in our endowment. Clearly, we can't afford to go buy all the land in the neighborhood and expand. Those resources are like there. But we see the community benefits being long-term. Just like we've been a benefit in having more than 200 employees on our campus right here in 37208. That's our objective, is to continue to do that. And that is what we are committed to. I thank you for taking the time to listen tonight, because clearly to me, you're committed to the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clark, for those remarks. Holding my hand, the first set of questions that have already been delivered to me. For those of you who are in the room and in the audience, and may have missed the orientation at the beginning, you do have some cards available to you. We've got some folks who are passing out those cards. We're going to try our best to get to as many of these questions as possible. There's also information on the card that if you're card your question verbalized from the microphone from the dais this evening, we can reach out to you to try to get those questions answered. Also, those of you who are tuning in online, we're going to be Lead Chapel's Facebook page is where you'll be seeing the live stream. You can submit your questions online, and we'll try to make sure that we can get to those questions as well. In the interest of time, I'll go ahead and proceed to ask the questions that are currently in my hand, and I will give those who are up here on the dais an opportunity to address those questions. I'll start with this question here. The question from the audience is, how large will the data center be in terms of power? 15 megawatts, 100 megawatts or larger? So first question. Can you elaborate, so this is for President Clark, can you elaborate on the water recycling facility? Where will it be located? What is its capacity? And what will the cooling speed that are going to be used? The third question here. Why are data centers being projected in other areas or being welcomed here in our city? The challenges of the university are the same they have been since the 1980s. How does the data center help to address those very challenges? What is basically promised? What are the risks associated with the promises? Yeah. I'm almost there, y'all. Dr. David Padgett asked a question about environmental impact. Have there been these studies conducted? Have studies been conducted on air quality, noise pollution, and impacts associated with the proposed data center? And we share the environmental study results with the public. Final questions here. Two more questions. What are the financial impacts on residents, especially those who are closest to the data center? How will bills increase? What wins are projected for the physics faculty and local community? And finally, what assurances can be offered such that no fire hazards pose a threat to the physics community and the North National area at large by the construction and or operation of a data center? Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so how large would the data center be in terms of power? 50 megawatts, 100 megawatts or larger? None of the above. We only have limited access to so much power and energy, well below 50 megawatts. But we don't have the final decision from Metro Council and Metro Planning as to what the parameters will be around data centers that they're not allowed to operate in the Metro District. So first, we don't have access to 50 megawatts, which is the smallest number you have here. But more importantly, Metro right now is looking at what they're going to have their referendum for consideration. And once we get that back, that's what we're going to really have to work from. Okay. They want me to elaborate on water. So we are looking at a very new technology around coolants used for data centers. It's almost like they could call it it's called immersive recycling. It has been described as once you fill up the swimming pool, that's the water that is just recycled within the swimming pool. It's not hooked up to the water lines of the other users in our community. But that technology, I understand, just changed again about 3 weeks ago. So we're going to continue to evaluate that and look at what the best solutions we have once we find out what our parameters are that we're going to be working in and the guidelines that we're going to be getting from Metro Council. Why are data centers being rejected in other areas and welcomed here? Right now, I only know of one data center that is not being welcomed in the Middle Tennessee market. That's a very, very different model. We have never considered doing anything like that project. We have never even looked at anything like that project. Why it's being rejected makes sense to me. But what's more important is that now, besides the work that we've already done, we're now waiting for Metro Council to give us some further guidelines. And we will plan to operate within their decisions and to make sure we adhere to their standards. We're happy to do that because those were our plans from the very beginning. The challenges of the university is the same as they've been since the 80s. Well, things have changed since the 80s. We'll just start with the changes that are coming down on us from the federal level. In the 80s, you will find that support of our HBCUs were a little different, especially when in the mid-60s, the HBCU classification allowed us to have access to resources and funding and support that is being stripped away. It's not the same as it was in the 80s. But what this data center concept does do was help Fisk University, when we look at a strategy, to serve the students that are here today and see if we can also provide them with the latest and greatest access to make sure they're here tomorrow. There will be environmental studies done once we know what we're doing. We'll have to. I mean, once we know exactly what this is going to be, there will be environmental studies done. This isn't going to be the kind of project where there's an environmental study done after the project is complete and is open, like we heard about in West Tennessee. We're not going to be able to proceed unless we're able to answer that question on the campus and outside of the campus. I can't address exactly what this desired answer will be, but I do believe it's about your power bills. So I'm guessing that's your electric bills, because that was an issue that came up as well. In our homework and research, we learned that the National Electric Service currently has a policy of operation. This is before Fisk ever came along with the question. It has been there. For commercial entities that are using power, they have a separate fee structure that is only paid by that user. Those rates are not passed on to the other residential consumers of the community. What assurances that there will be no biohazards? Again, that goes back to we will have to do environmental studies again, because we have people on that campus, we have students on that campus, we have faculty and staff on that campus working every day, all day. So not only is it important for us to make sure we're not doing any environmental harm to them, we want to make sure we're not doing any environmental harm to the community.
Again, thank you all for those questions, and thank you, President Clark, for your answers. I have a series of a lot of questions here. I'm going to run through this series and then give an opportunity to the respondents to answer. Again, if you have a question, you've not yet received your card, just raise your hand, and one of the folks who are here in the room who have those cards available will come over to you. Thank you. We have another question from the audience member. Why was there not a request for dorms or economic innovations to be a part of this multi-million-dollar plan? Why was this announcement made while students were absent from campus, thus silencing their voices? What is the plan for funds if or when this particular project falls through? Regulations for data centers that Metro Council is considering classify Fisk University's proposed data center as large, meaning it must sit one half mile from a church, a home, or community education center. All of these exist within a half mile from the proposed parcel. What is the plan if this particular proposal passes? Data stored at data centers are not benign. And as it is not being used, and it also is not being used in benign ways, data stored at any and all data centers is being collected, sold, stored, and utilized by companies like Oracle, Palantir, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and the list goes on. To surveil and to potentially and disproportionately impact us in the US and abroad, Black and brown people. Is that the legacy that Fisk University wants to enable or carry on? Regardless of the complete function of the facility, nearly 100% of the energy put into the facility will be converted into heat. That heat cannot just disappear. Because this heat will be sent to the intermediate vicinity, it will likely have grave public health impacts. Given that concern, how can one be confident that this proposal will do no harm? In a recent poll from Reuters, only 14% of people polled support a data center in their community. How do you square building such a data center that 86% of people potentially do not want? Question for the audience. Have you consolidated or considered that multiple small data centers might be preferred to a singular large data center? Do you commit that all the research and studies be conducted responsibly? How will the data center help with enrollment? Every resident in Davidson County, Metro Council, I'm sorry. Where will the reporting and the accountability, fiscal and otherwise, be for this project? How would this data center be different from the one at XAI? Stop there and give President Clark and I guess an opportunity to respond.
Why wasn't the new north of organizations of the park? It is. It's in the master plan. Again, take a look at the master plan. You will see that renovations of the residence halls are in there. They have been in there. Again, I'll go back to looking at a plan from 2008 where nothing got executed and brought it forward and decided what needs to be priorities in there. It is in there. That's a part of our strategy. Why was this announcement made while students were absent from campus, thus silencing their voices? I just met with a group of students last week. Students are not on campus at Fisk University in the summer times. We do have a group of students that are there. And the announcement came after commencement, which is something else we hear a lot about. It's the first weekend in May. And we are all hands on deck. All hands on deck getting ready for commencement because of the number of guests that we have to host. And, but we have been talking to students. What is the plan for funds and when this falls through? Well, we don't have plans for anything that's fallen through yet because we haven't started funding anything yet. My first meeting on the renovation of the residence halls is tomorrow. I hope I have some better information for you on that. I've been in several meetings already on the annex we're doing to the John Lewis Center for Social Justice. So their projects are already in place. Each of these projects are going to end up having a unique funding model because of their programmatic intent. But these are some projects that are already in place. This question really is about the regulations that are being established by Metro Council. Metro Council is in the process of looking at the referendum. They're still evaluating that. It has not been finalized. As soon as we get a finalized referendum that we know will be the guidelines that we're working from, we will integrate that and incorporate it into everything that we're doing. Yeah, this question was about all of the companies that are collecting data and information and also surveilling the U.S. abroad. This data center will be an enabler to that. It's hard to even commit to that because we don't know what this data center is doing. This data center just may be a service data center. It might be a research data center. That's why we're going to carefully evaluate every partner that has an interest. Once we put out there what our guidelines and parameters are, if there are any that are even interested, who they are and what they're interested in doing and how they want to use the data center. And as I told the group this morning, once we start entering into those conversations, just like I told them I would reconvene with them, I'll be more than happy to come right back here and have that same conversation to let you know what we've learned since we understand from Metro what the guidelines and requirements are. Again, we announced this so that we can be transparent about what the vision of our plan is. And by doing that, that's why we're able to get the information we need to guide us forward. Energy for this facility, the heat. That's where the cooling comes in. That's a good question. So there are 8 or 9 different models on how data centers are cooled. This is not one of those hyperscaled data centers. So I think that's what you're referring to when you talk about the hyperscalers. The one in Memphis is a hyperscale center. This is not that. So the cooling options we have are many. And one of them is a closed loop immersive cooling. In recent poll from Reuters, 14% of people do not support data. No, 14% support a data center in their community. 86% say they do not. I haven't seen that study. I will certainly take the time to look it up. But I will tell you for that 86%, what center are they getting their data and information from today? We can say that we don't want it in our community, but clearly they have shown up somewhere. And I will tell you, they're everywhere. They may not be called a data center because they're not running the number of CPUs that you will hear about over in Memphis. But for 86% of them say they don't want them, my question is also as a follow-up to that, do you think they're in your community right now? Have you consoled multiple small data centers as opposed to a singular big one? Well, I don't know, this is not you. big one. But we do commit to the research. Once we understand what the guidelines and the parameters are that we have to operate within, and to see what the space and its requirements will be helpful in helping us determine how the studies will be conducted, et cetera, et cetera. Those are questions we can't answer today because we don't know the size that the center will be, because we do not have the outcomes of the referendum from Metro Council. How will a data center help with enrollment? It'd be nice if we could just track the enrollment. It'd be nice if we have the tools that we can be immediate in our communications with students who apply. It'd be fabulous if we can use information to make sure that not only they apply, that we can reply, but we can give them an update constantly on their enrollment status at Fisk. Every investor in Davidson County is an investor in Fisk. That's true, I guess. You're referencing here, the repurpose $8 million in COVID relief. That was one time. This has been there 160 years. How about this data center different from XAI? And XAI is the center over in Memphis. And you can just read the environmental study report on that center. I encourage you all to read it. It will tell you the size. It will tell you the megawatts. It will tell you how it's fueled. It will tell you how the emissions issues are real. It will tell you all of that based on the design and engineering of the center. We're not looking at anything like that. I'm sorry, you said, how do you know that? I'm sorry. Oh.
Thank you. That was a question that was being vocalized here in the room. If you wouldn't mind just raising your hand and writing the question down, I'll be happy to make sure that it gets verbalized so that we can get an answer to that question. Thank you very much. So we still have cards up here that are being.
Read my question. Money is repurposed. Where is the financial accountability? You also like to hold up the areas yet. Where is the financial report? Where is the annual report? Haven't raised $43 million last. You come in here and lecture us about what we're not doing. I want my question answered about accountability and financial reporting.
So there's a question about financial.
What is the financial accountability report?
Understood. I want to make sure that I say the question correctly to make sure that the question in the audience is a correct question. The question about financial reporting and COVID relief funds. There were a couple of different elements that I didn't quite hear from here up to the top of that. I will give the president an opportunity to be able to respond to that question.
Okay, so is this a question about Metro Council has repurposed $8 million? Where is the reporting and financial accountability to this? You just go to our website. But specifically, what do you want to know about your financial? Do you want to know our annual operating budget? You want to know what percentage of that is fundraising? I mean, I'm sorry.
Community has mentioned 12 different times. In 2024, Metro Council repurposed COVID relief dollars that were supposed to go for a community business center. That money was repurposed for this general operation. You've been credited for 3 years. I cannot find a financial report or an annual report, anything on the website. When you go to Hampton University's website, the president has a report every year. Last year, they raised $43 million. And they reported an increase on alumni funding. Yes, our institutions have always been under threat. Our people have always been under threat. Where's your accountability to show us how to support you?
So if you want to, I can break, so is your question, you want me to break down the financials?
Do you have any reports saying where the?
Yes, they are.
That's not one.
Fisk University does an audited financial report every year. is the audited financial. So, if you're not on the website, they're on, how to start. So, then.
It's, the question about the money that was allocated for the Freeman Entrepreneurial Center. Yes. I was on the committee that approved that. The university expressed a desire to have that money go to operating funds rather than go to a building and have problems making payroll. Up the road. Another institution did the same thing with money from the state. They repurposed $96 million of deferred maintenance dollars to operate the school. That's what has to that now. You look for the report.
I will report on giving privacy, reporting the advice. I just want to know where the money is going. That's what I want to know.
Well, that $10 million went to the operating funds.
I want to make sure I answer your question. So the annual operating budget of Fisk University is. Yeah, yeah. So Fisk University's annual operating budget, if you look at the breakdown, over 60% of it comes from federal support and funding. Okay, we do get some dollars from fundraising. We do get some dollars from alumni giving. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm still not answering your question. Okay, so if it's not on the website, because these are all publicly available records, I'm confused as to why you're having a hard time just accessing Fisk University annual report. I thought it was on the website. I guess once I see the audited financials, I'm assuming that all of that, but they're publicly available records. But the Freeman Center was a really complex issue because it just wasn't the investment in the Freeman Center. There were a list of requirements that came after that we could not fulfill those obligations.
All right, dear friends, there are a stack of questions here. So in the interest of time, to make sure that we can be efficient, that's time tonight. I'm going to go through any of these questions as we can get to them this evening. We're going to try to move things along in terms of the questions. I mean, there are some questions that have not been fully answered. We're going to try our best to make sure that we send out emails to respond to those answers, to those questions. And also, if you have questions that have been asked in the chat line, the NAACP will pass that information along and respond to those questions after tonight's call. Here we go. Who is paying for the infrastructure upgrades needed to power this facility? What has been your medical comments to the project? Are they agreeing with it? Are there any circumstances that may make the university retract or seize this data center? Data centers in Black communities promote social inequality, physical gases in the air, odors, toxic waste, industrial pollution, unsafe living conditions, housing segregation, representation. How do you address these concerns in our community on HBCU campus? What are the folks involved in the decision of what the data center will look like? And when do those decisions and groups meet next? Do you have a specific example of a good data center that is also in the middle of the community? Do you have a specific example of how you are looking to build out this model? Please provide specific studies in regard to long-term health effects on residents near data centers, especially as you consider those data centers good. As you previously stated, we're still making negotiations with some of Fisk must be, something at Fisk must be given up in order for Fisk to gain the facilities you've spoken of. So my question is, how much are you willing to give up in exchange for this plan? And will it continue specifically with students have a say in these future negotiations? How long has Fisk been in conversation with the mayor, with the council, etc.? Detailing your current and past community engagement strategy beyond how to complete it. Technology is changing every second. Fisk have a concrete plan for sustaining the center, even though no one confidence or anyone knows what will happen. How much water consumption will the Innovation Center need in order to humidify? How can I, as a person not affiliated with Fisk, help to work for the benefit of Fisk University, not just in the form of donations? How feasible is the exclusive use of battery backup systems for a 30-megawatt data center? What concern does the use of diesel backup systems raise for Fisk? This question is specifically directed to representatives of Honorary Councilmember Taylor. Would you consider passing legislation outright banning data centers 37208, 37218, and the North Nashville community entirely? The train tracks Nashville and Western are an 18-mile traditional freight short line track powered by diesel locomotives. Where is the electricity actually coming from? The tracks are electric. You mentioned visiting a data center, and it was inherently secure. What would it look like for Black students to be living in an inherently secure place? 7208 is one of the most incarcerated districts in our nation. Our security issue. It's unclear to me where all monies are coming from or being donated by companies or entities. Remember, with money comes advice, comes advice and control. Do you have a timeline for making a decision regarding the Innovation Center, updates, type of center, etc.? Is this a 10 or 15-year plan rollout or a 6-year rollout? Has Fisk surveyed current students and alumni on their wishes for the Innovation Center? What exciting resources are available for students are made possible and available for such an Innovation Center? What are the plans for transparency and accountability after the data center is in place, undergirded by an external independent review and assessment on the schedule, quarterly, annually? How will the data center be shared? Environmental impact with stakeholders, public health impact, return on investment, commitment to promised projects and goals for the project. What are the projections for the university over the next 5 to 10 to 20 years? And who will finance this project? And finally, why is there a 30-megawatt output at Fisk for such a small campus, 40 acres, as compared to an institution like
Yes.
well, we're going to give an opportunity for the representatives to respond to their question first, and then we'll get back to President Fidel in just a moment.
I feel what I did do a simple Google search. Fisk University annual report. It took me to public. The 990. There's the audit report online. But my point is that it's out there. And you can access it. Okay. I get your purpose. I get you. The question was, do we pass legislation to sponsor a bill to outlaw data centers in 37208, 37209,
218,
218,
and North Nashville entirely.
North. Whatever. So no data centers of any kind.
That's the question.
So that's the question.
That's the question.
No data centers of any kind.
That's the question.
There's something clear about it. I can't commit to that. Because there are different kinds of data centers, as was shown earlier.
Yeah.
Now, if you bring me a bill, I'll be happy to look at it, talk to you about it, as an all of possible. But just to sit here and say outright that I'm going to do that, I really can't do that. I want to be honest with you about that. Okay, because that's not how we do policy. We don't ask like that, and then who's to say we want to develop a data center of a small nature just to help out your street? I had a person in Black Tech talk about how we might get use of our property, a house, to a very small data center. Because there are all types of data centers. For computer lab. If I say no data center at all, then what happens? All right, that's my response to that question.
I would say similar response, but, I would ask that whoever is asking me to do this, one be constituent and one bring me the data to say why and give me what you want to see out of the legislation like that. And, so I don't know if I can commit to something like that outright, because again, it's not how we do policy. And I want to make sure that the community benefits from any type of legislation dealing with data centers. In the same that Nashville is creating these tourism opportunity zones that generates revenue for certain areas of Nashville. Why can't we have that for our communities that generate revenue and puts it, reinvest it back into our community? So I don't know if I can commit today to say that I will outright ban them, because like you said, there are several different types. But I would be willing to listen, consider, do research, and I will certainly not do it without a town hall and to ask you if that's what you want. So that's my
This is a great opportunity. I wanted to come back. President Clark mentioned that there are some items before the city council that will put parameters around what data centers are, where they can go. One thing, this has been a quick learn for many of us, because this is a conversation that we're having very rapidly, not only in the city, for many of us here, but also the city council, because we do have two bills right now before us in regards to data centers. And so that's what I would like to approach with is what we have. One is a moratorium, so we can get in front of that's presented by Councilmember Courtney Johnson. Second, by Councilmember Roland Horton, with several co-sponsors, which we included, is a bill that puts parameters around data centers. I think Representative Love mentioned that a computer lab is that computer labs are technically, if we said no data centers, our universities and churches and libraries, all the places where we have a number of communities, computers or room. We all work with small organizations, large organizations. There's a computer room or a network room that's also considered a data center. So we couldn't have any of those things. So saying no outright, we have to be careful about what that is why this legislation is for us to put parameters around what kind of data centers. When we think about Elon Musk data center, we definitely don't want that. right? We definitely don't want that. There's a number of data centers we don't want here. However, there are data centers, and we don't use that terminology with it. There are definitely centers, computer rooms, computer labs that we use that type of terminology that we have to have to move in today's society. And so, one thing I do want to note here is that there's a great opportunity to have a discussion with council. We've been brought up a lot of this conversation, and you can come out on next Tuesday, July 7th at 6:30 p.m. We'll be having a public hearing on legislation around data centers. Everyone has 2 minutes to be able to speak their case on what they think about data centers, what they should be doing, how we should be doing that. And I invite you all to one public square, the courthouse downtown, to come out and share with us what your thoughts are around this subject. We're going to be taking this up, we're taking it very seriously. There's a number of council members that are here tonight. There's another meeting about the Zoom, specifically about the data centers, but more specifically about the Zoom last week. And we invite you all to come out and share your thoughts around that. I think it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a great opportunity to have a voice heard on how we as a city should move forward with data centers. If you say, hey, we don't like the parameters, we want you to kill all data centers, we can look at that. If you think the parameters are too open, we can then look at that. This is a Title 17 deal, which means we can amend it on third reading. It's going to be second reading, so we've had one reading. Typically, those bills can go through to second reading by our what they call rules, bylaws, as you would say. But you can come out on Tuesday to have a discussion, and I wanted to keep this bill number. You can just do a very simple Google search. I didn't know what Google search just to make sure I wouldn't lie to you. So the bill number for the parameters is BL 2026-1391, and that is BL 2026-1391. I would encourage you all to take time to some of the questions I can tell many people have read the legislation, but if you hadn't had a chance to read it, you've kind of got snippets of what the media said. I would encourage you to read it for yourself, to send emails to your council member directly on your thoughts about that, to send emails to all council members at Nashville.gov. Mine is Brandon.Taylor@Nashville.gov. Specifically for Fisk, I'm council member, is in that speaker for Fisk. But overall, throughout the whole county, we're not just looking at North Nashville. North Nashville, my favorite. I always tell people, I ain't going to any of the community meeting because they got nothing to do with us. But North Nashville is where we need to be. And so please reach out to me directly. Many of you have already. Again, I'm a co-signer on the parameters bill, and I think that July 7th, we want to see many of you in the room to speak out there in regards to the legislation.
Right, everyone. We are about 10 minutes past our prescribed time. What we want to do, because there's so many questions, is try to give at least a summary response to the questions that the president currently has. Allow for those questions to be answered. And if you did not hear the question formalized over the microphone, we will do our best to make sure that we can respond to you prior to our next prepared town hall. We're going to have a series of these, at least 2 more. Hoping to be able to have a community involved in the town hall, and of course, one involving as students at the final town hall as well. So I'm going to pass to the president. Before I do that, I just want to recognize any elected officials in the room. If you would just raise your hand. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so very much. We want to thank also the members of the NAACP here. Just raise your hand. We recognize. Appreciate you all for being in the room. Any Fisk guys. physical interest. Just, you don't see it all the time, you already going up. But I want to take a minute of personal privilege just to thank everyone for feelings of this room. Thank you all so much for your willingness to engage around this topic and your commitment to this university, to this discussion. We greatly appreciate it. President Cole.
It's, yeah, only visible. I think that's the last.
Maybe if I can, just listen to announcements. Again, thank you all for coming tonight. And please stay engaged. We want to do some important announcements for the election season. On July 18th, there's going to be a straw poll for districts 4, 6, and 7 at Swiss Restaurant from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's the congressional districts 4, 6, and 7 straw poll. Also, please join us on Thursday, this Thursday. Pastor Scott, if you'll please stand. He's hosting a meeting at First Baptist Church Capitol Hill at 6 p.m. as we talk about ways moving forward in our new congressional district, how we should turn out in mass numbers to make sure we get that representation. So again, thank you all again for the chance to host. Thank my colleagues up here and those over there for giving us time, and President Clark and everybody in the community. Thank you all for your interest and stay involved now for Dr. Clark.
So I was going through some of these questions and a lot of them could be answered in the same way. Fisk University does not have a partner. And we also don't have the guidelines and the parameters by which the data center will even be designed. We're waiting for the outcomes of what comes from Medical Council. We'll take a look at those guidelines, integrate them into where we are and what we think we can do, and decide from there what our next steps are. Because we don't have a partner, I can't answer any questions, because once we decide what size, what we can do and what we can't do, that will allow us then to do all of the studies needed to help us determine what kind of data center. I think our leaders here today have shared that, again, there are all kinds of data centers. So we'll take a look at what those options may look like once that's been finalized. For right now, we don't have anything to work with because the guidelines and the parameters have not been established. What has Missouri Medical College said about this? That is one of the questions that I haven't addressed. The Harris Medical College released a letter of support. It is public record. They have said that they support Fisk University and what we're doing with our campus master plan. I think that's one thing I haven't talked about already. What are the circumstances that you were looking at the size of your data center? I need to get the guidelines from Metro Council to decide what that looks like. Are there other communities like HBCUs that have data centers on them? I know NCAT is one. I think there are two in the Atlanta Center right now that we're looking at them if they haven't announced them yet. The decisions about everything that we do at Fisk University as far as the land and the buildings and what we do with those facilities, we are in always an ongoing conversation with the university's board of trustees. We have had the board actually has an ad hoc committee it has established that is tracking where we are, what we're doing, and what will come next. So we're in constant conversation with them as we are with our community about where we are. And what I've shared with you tonight is where we are. Yes, I have visited several data centers. And I will tell you again, no two are alike. I visited 4, 2 were LEED, environmental LEED certified. That was quite interesting to me because that's when I learned that you can do data center engineering and design that is LEED certified, and that's all around environmental impact. And a lot of these questions continue to be around environmental impact. We will be doing that as soon as we know what our options are and what direction we have to go in. Are we looking at battery backup centers? systems for a 30 megawatt data center, and what concerns you have of that, as well as diesel backup centers. We're not looking at any backup centers because we don't know what size data center we're going to be operating. But we do know that you can engineer and design data centers, and our first imperative was to make sure that environmentally that they were safe. And there are data centers that you can find right now that are already LEED certified and meet all the environmental standards to have no carbon. Other than that, they're all the questions I've already answered. And I just want to take the last few minutes of my time. First, I really would like to thank Senator Oliver. I reached out to Senator Oliver. I reached out to our Representative Harold Love. I reached out to our councilman months ago, and told them about the university's campus master plan. I applaud them for asking questions then and continuing to ask questions today. I'd like to thank them for taking the time, including the leader for the NAACP, because this is a community impact conversation, and for gathering us all together to have this conversation. Your input is important to us. We will keep all of these cards. We start posting answers to all of these on the Fisk University website, which is where all of the questions have been coming in, including those for individuals who could not be here tonight. We want to thank you for your time. I want to thank them for bringing us all together, because I know they will be doing it again. Thank you.
Now, this is about the electric train, the train. It was never it's always been, it's not an AC. And so if this never been electric, where electricity, something that is staying from the class. That's all. Set it all out. So there is, doesn't.
You recently that should have been required all the signatures over and over again.
Again, there was a question asked in the audience, and we appreciate all the questions. Again, and someone who wants to present, okay, great.
Thank you.
Just gonna ask me a question. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Dr. Clark did a good job of answering all the questions, I think. But the power that we were talking about is, we subscribers to 691 kV month. They runs right along Currency.
And I know.
So it's the power line that they find right. So if you know where this old track is, there's a line, I think, this 70th Avenue North and Herman Street, right along that street is the KV, is a 691 KV line is where that power comes from.
So that's not, that doesn't sound like it comes from the train track. It sounds like.
No, right.
So it's
I'm
not.
not really sure where that comes from. Train track.
It's in the area.
For clarification, they thought there would be a train track going there. So that line was there for, it's been there for a long time. So a train track never materialized. Okay? I mean, no, it's clear that you can ride by, see the lines running above it. So for clarity, the line is running above it. And if NES told us that they had, it was there maybe because of the whole track. We saw the NES as well as we talked to Measure Water, just for a little bit more information. They identified the water line as a 16-inch water line that runs down 17th Avenue. What they also, information they also had is when that line was built, there were other lines that were smaller that were built in like 1902, and they said if you touch that line, you're likely not to be successful. This water line that they told us about is a water line that we could tap into and be successful. So that's those two things, power and water, made the president and the team feel comfortable to be able to say this data center be possible. So from there, a lot more engineering has to be done to answer all our questions. So we can answer all your questions. Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone to come out tonight and do our early remarks. I would like to thank our trustees at Fisk University. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
No, the one that's on top. Volunteer was from India. But I mean, I don't think really many.
Yeah, you did. I'll down.
I did got another part of it.
Yeah. I'm down with mine. Okay. How many times have we sold it? It was every.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, let me get some excuse. Literally, so I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So and everybody.
hey,
She.
it wasn't completely.
I give them out like I'm gonna answer.
Yeah, the issue is that I see right now, all the answers because we don't have the information. I thought it was always going to be a good thing. No, a lot of people aren't bringing it down. I think it was just that a lot of questions to be answered because they can't be answered. So I feel like everybody asking questions that couldn't be answered.
I actually want to speak on that.
Said what?
I actually want to speak on that. What I said.
What's up?
Sometimes I've been back. It's being done.
I definitely agree with you. Wait, when you don't.
Just to get like this.
Yeah, what I think is actually right now is that there's a lot of confusion of information and a lot of information that was just filled out and research and
Anyway,
that's what I'm talking about. It's like a lot of information is really just here. Let me give you information, but none of it was organized. So you was able to see what people is over the
I know they were like, oh, the back door. There wasn't even talking about like The more you pay attention, so more you go into. It's not necessarily. There's the simple. I don't get the friends university felt like seven, I think. It's very different than More we just started, I used to hear a smaller audience and more has like.
And you get that actual connection of what the data center is doing.
And they got.
And then it's not like.
Okay, so my understanding is now is that this information and just giving out from look at the map. It's gonna be in a building. It's not really the building's not that big,
They were like,
but it's still gonna be a student center within that building. I can find out it's like the whole building, the whole
there's nothing anybody can do for me. God bless.
It's insane. It's gonna be that's what it's gonna be so. That's what I'm saying. The information is just being, but nobody's really getting a further examination of doing extra research. And that's my biggest issue. Research wasn't being further examined. And it's just giving that's my biggest issue. It's right now. They literally practice they do all these grandiose ideas and further things are being researched. Yeah, and it's just like with the new thing, they threw out this new thing with doing some things that wasn't research, wasn't further emphasized and things of that nature. And students are confused. All of this money going towards the dorms, people funded. They were going to do it wasn't. It was a whole class. You can see the plaque right there. That's an alumni class funding for that. And that's where people are really getting confused and learning these things. And information should be being thrown up the wall and like, hey, we're gonna do this, hey, we're gonna do that. No further research. And that's really my biggest issue with a lot of these talks and conversations. That's my biggest issue. But like I said, I am pro data center for extra information being added. And my biggest issue is if it affects the community, I'm anti data center.
I mean, you can do this.
Yep.
Where they were like, what are your mitigations? Okay.
Thank you.
That's why I see what it's happening. Yeah. Oh, virtually. Like similar to the mistake, never have no thinking that didn't affect. So I think I said, you told me something because that's what I guess. I'm here to say that's the most. March or you.
And that's another conversation. Like that's a whole different conversation. to have. I actually what you saying. There should be some type of level of funding and delegation for people that do get affected by this thing. But I don't know how. I don't know where it would actually come from. Because this doesn't have this don't have nothing. We see some of that. I'm just a lot. But this a fish. It's a physical to join somebody who goes that's this they have the tens of millions of that's you only have it's never never this ability to somebody that actually builds dollars. They covers fund yeah. You want to come here to fight it. You know, so yeah. That's it. I understand. I agree, but that's a as a person and whoever the time you know how she said we're I don't want to say the word. Yeah, well, I mean, you whoever it is, all the Buddha comes out. Okay, I understand. Thanks. But these are the conversations that need to be had. I can't be mad. Powers that be, we know everything that's possible. All right. So that's stuff. I've got a question for you. People ask. I had a question about like she said that when she had a piece like an interview and she visited some data center, she said and had like a lot of like security and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. I talked to the floor. Marketing, quiz phone. Dr. Wall is going to give anything about brothers, family. Thank you. Oh, pardon me. Dr. Patrick, my apologies. What's your question? I know what there was several trying to combine it. I'll make sure you get them taken care of. Thank you so much. That detail outline. You're an artist. Wait, we're going to photograph. Say I'm a bad lady. Hey, we can go experiment. You can't say we can the food. Yeah. I had the best yesterday, man, but they're figuring and it's what to read about again. Yes. Yes,
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's very, she just, that's my. Definitely. Yes, you should. Like so. So like. Like in our age. The big man, where is he? The son is like. Oh, I go to that. I'm trying to be a little town hall. Town hall. I look there. Yeah, I don't know the name. Can I shut this off? I don't know how long I'm supposed to run this. Also have I was recording for the Tennessee Holler. I feel like I just gave it. This model is a lot of oh, sure. I feel the Fisk is like the summer thing. I got off, maybe tired. So you graduated, you just right here. Okay. And yeah, I'm from there. Okay. Your face. Come here. And I'll be. Make most of them. Well, so like when things go against,
y'all need to start maybe, well, maybe Casa Garner needs their own dumpster.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason that that's happening, it's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like a project of trash cans. It's never clean.